Hi there, it's me, Snoozles, and I'm glad you came to see me again. I want to tell you all about the things I've been doing today. Oh, it's been a good one, all right. It's Saturday when Danny and Sara are out of school, and we can spend the whole day together. So, when everyone had gotten out of bed and the kids had eaten their breakfast, their mom said, maybe we should go to the beach today. Yes, oh yes, everyone liked that idea, and I began wagging my tail with excitement. We packed an ice chest full of food and drinks, and another bag with their swimsuits and towels, and the frisbee, which is one of my favorite toys, then piled into our van. Danny has a surfboard that he'd strapped on top of the van, which made me really excited because I'd like to watch him ride the waves, and he's told me that someday he's going to take me with him for a ride. It took us almost an hour to get to the beach, and the kids kept the window rolled down next to me because they know how much I love sticking my head outside and feeling the wind rush over my face. And I could tell when we were getting close to the beach because, do you know how? Because I could smell it. The water in the ocean is full of salt, and I could smell the scent of salt water in the air now. We were almost there. Then we drove over a hill, and there it was, the big blue ocean, as far as the eye could see, waiting there just for me. We parked the van right next to the sand and hopped outside and grabbed all our stuff and walked toward the water. Well, they walked and I ran. I couldn't hold myself back. It was a perfect day to be on the beach, and it made me feel like running. My senses had come alive, all 5 of them. I could see the waves rolling toward the shore. The sun was shining and there were a few white puffy clouds drifting by. There were sailboats gliding along out on the water. This was my sense of seeing, of sight. And number 2, I heard the waves crashing in the distance and a small airplane flying along the coastline. My sense of hearing. And 3, well, of course, you should know by now how I love to use my nose to smell things, like this salt water and people cooking their lunches on the beach. And then, when I reached the water's edge, I jumped up and down as the waves touched my paws. The sand was soft and wet. That's what I was feeling, what I was touching with my 4th sense. And number 5, with the water splashing on my face, I could taste that salt water with my tongue and my mouth. These are my 5 senses that were making me feel so alive right now. Hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, and touching. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and Danny could hardly wait to grab his surfboard and run toward the water. His mom and dad called out to him, "Now be careful out there. The waves are pretty big today." I ran along beside him until we reached the water, and I chased the waves up and back as they splashed onto the shore, and watched Danny paddle to where the big waves were breaking. Then I heard Sarah's voice from behind me. "Hey, Snoozles, catch this." She had the frisbee in her hand, and I jumped up and down, waiting for her to throw it. Finally, she let it go with a strong throw, and I ran as fast as I could along the shore. I didn't think I could get to it before it landed in the sand, but the frisbee just twirled around, almost hanging still in the air, and I was able to jump up and catch it in my mouth. I ran back to Sara and gave her the frisbee, and she said, "Shall I throw it again, Snoozles?" I jumped up and spun around in a circle. Of course, I wanted her to throw it again, and she did. She threw that frisbee with all her might, and I took off running after it again with the waves splashing on my legs. The frisbee was drifting sideways above the ocean now, but I could still catch it. I ran into the waves that were breaking on the shore and jumped over them and up into the air, catching the frisbee just as it splashed into the water. Sara and her mom and dad let out a big cheer for me, saying things like, "Nice catch, Snoozles," and "You're such a good dog." I ran back toward them with the frisbee in my mouth, and they were still cheering, but they weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking at Danny, who had caught a wave and was standing up on his surfboard. He was riding sideways on the wave that was pushing him along really fast. By using his legs to turn the board, he could ride sideways in the other direction, then back again the other way, until he was close to shore and fell into the water with a big splash. He stood up next to his board and said, "Are you ready, Snoozles? Let's go for a ride." Oh, well, today was my lucky day. I was about to go surfing for the first time. I ran toward him and jumped into the ocean, then began paddling with my legs, swimming the way dogs swim, until I was right beside him. Danny picked me up and helped me onto his board, and I sat on the very front of it as he lied down behind me and began paddling with his hands to take us out to where the waves were breaking. As we rode over the waves, the front of the board, with me hanging on to it, would rise high up into the air and then splash down on the other side of it. Then Danny turned the board, facing it toward the shore, and said, "I'm going to paddle real fast and we'll catch this next wave. Then we can stand up and ride it all the way in." I nodded my head up and down, which meant, yes, I'm ready. And Danny started to paddle faster and faster. And then we caught the wave, and it was pushing us along. And Danny jumped to his feet, and I did too. We were standing on the board as it cut through the water, riding on the wave until we were almost to the shore, and that's when we both fell off the board and into the water with a big splash. "Yay, Snoozles and Danny!" shouted Sara, along with her mom and dad. They were clapping their hands and jumping up and down. Riding on the waves was so much fun. I'd never felt anything like it before. And I was glad to hear Danny say, "Maybe we should do that again." I lifted my front paws onto the board and pulled myself up onto it, and Danny paddled out again for another ride, and then another. We were surfing for almost an hour until Danny's mom waved her arms and signaled us to come join them for lunch. Everyone was hungry. Sara and her parents had been swimming and playing in the waves while Danny and I were surfing, and we had all worked up a big appetite. They passed around sandwiches and bananas and apples, and they had brought some dog food for me, which they put in my bowl, and everybody sat down and ate their lunch. When we were finished eating, Sara said, "Come on, Snoozles, let's see if we can find some pretty shells." Sara had a big glass bowl in her bedroom that was full of seashells, and she was always looking for more to add to her collection. She started running down the beach, and I ran beside her, and there were lots of these little birds with long legs called sandpipers running ahead of us. Sara stopped and said, "This looks like a good place to dig." We dug a hole and looked at the shells as they popped out of the sand. Seashells used to have little animals living inside them, and some of them still do. But most of the shells were empty. No one home. The animal was gone, washed away, and all that was left was the shell. I found a big shell that looked kind of like a fan with colors of orange and yellow. And I dug up little rocks that were pretty and colorful. One of them was bright green like an emerald stone, and Sara said, "This is going in my collection for sure." We walked to a spot that was rocky, with little pools of water that came halfway up my legs. These were called tide pools, and there were animals living in here, like starfish, which weren't really fish, that's just what people called them. They were bright orange, bigger than Sara's hands, with 5 arms that spread out around them, making them look like a star. On the rocks, I saw a shell that seemed to be moving. It was moving. Sara said, "There's a little crab in there, Snoozles. It's called a hermit crab, and the shell is not really a part of it, but it found that shell before we did and decided to make the shell its home. For a while, anyway. It might leave that shell and find another one in which to live, but right now, that shell is where it hides, so that no one can hurt it." I walked over to it and could see the little legs sticking out and pushing it along. "Hey there, Mr. Hermit Crab," I said. "Come out of there. I want to see what the rest of you looks like." I touched the crab's legs with my paws, and he pulled his legs back inside the shell, hiding from me. "I think you scared him," said Sara. "We should probably just leave him alone for now. Maybe if I sing him a nice song, he might understand that I don't want to hurt him, and he'll come out and play with me." Who could be right next to me? Is somebody there? Peekaboo, now I see you with something to share. I will bring a song to sing and stories to tell. Hey little one, let's have some fun. Come out of your shell. Peekaboo, now I see you with something to share. I will bring a song to sing and stories to tell. Hey little one, let's have some fun. Come out of your shell.